What's going on, everybody? We're finally back. It's about damn time, right? The NFL season kicks off in 3 days between the Chiefs and the Ravens. On Friday, we've got Peacock. Sunday, we got a whole slate of games that we're going to get into. And then Monday night, we've got the Jets and the 49ers. Literally a week from today, it's Monday Night Football. So that's just flat out absurd in itself. And this is our first picks episode of the 2024 season. We are so excited. I don't know how ecstatic I've been waiting for this. It's been a long ass summer. It's been a way too long July, and August couldn't go any faster. So let's jump right into the show. It's OC. It's TJ. How excited are you?
I'm pretty pumped. This is one of the best weeks of the year, I think, because everyone's just like you're waiting so long for like just all these matchups, and then either you're watching it on Red Zone or just for the first Thursday night game like that is there's always so much anticipation. So and we got some good freaking matchups, so it's gonna be really fun.
Absolutely. And we're gonna get into it, but I think before we do that, I just wanted to take a quick moment to say prayers up for 49ers wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. He got released from the hospital yesterday. He was just placed on the non-football illness list, which means he's going to miss the first 4 games of the season. For those of you who might not know what I'm talking about a few days ago, he was shot in an attempted robbery in San Francisco, and he was hospitalized. Apparently, the bullet went through his chest and out his back, but it didn't affect any of his vital organs. So he was in serious but stable condition. Thankfully, he's alive. He's out of the hospital, and it's just great that he's alive and back in good spirits. So I just want to send our prayers and best thoughts to him and his family, the whole 49ers organization, and just a huge, shout out to the police officers, the emergency services, the doctors that were affected or were involved in this situation, because, I mean, that was really terrifying when I saw the news, but I'm happy that Ricky Pearsall is alive and that he's getting better. So any thoughts, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, pretty scary situation. But glad it's, seems like he's in the right trajectory to that this isn't gonna be too serious. So yeah.
Exactly. Okay, let's jump into the show. Let's obviously there were a lot more headlines that circulated. 2 wide receivers finally got paid. And, we're going to get into those as we get into those games. But first, I think it's fair that we start with the first NFL matchup of the season. The Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Baltimore Ravens in their season opener. Obviously, whoever wins the Super Bowl gets to host the first game of the year. Last year, we got ourselves a pretty good upset when the Detroit Lions beat Kansas City 21-20 and the infamous Kadarius Toney drop festival. And I mean, I swear, it sounds like a little tone deaf now, just knowing that he got cut like a few weeks ago. But still, I think that's what a lot of Giants fans remember, a lot of what football fans remember. But this time we got a rematch of the AFC Championship. Obviously, we got Mahomes versus Lamar. It's Derrick Henry's first game as a Raven. Unfortunately, Hollywood Brown will not be getting his revenge since he is injured and will most likely not be playing because of a shoulder injury. But TJ, I'll let you go first. Who do you have winning this game, and how excited are you for this matchup?
I'm pretty excited that they put this as the week 1 matchup, but there were a lot of the Chiefs play some pretty good opponents. So, I think they could have gone a bunch of different ways here, but I'm happy they went this direction. I mean, it's a tough game just because, obviously the AFC Championship game didn't go too well for the Ravens. They really couldn't do anything on offense, but new season, both these teams, at least on paper, look upgraded. So you got to think it's a pretty even matchup, especially with the quarterback play. But I feel like I kind of like the Chiefs at home here, week 1. I mean, there's the stat about Mahomes in September. He's basically perfect. Not that makes the entire decision, but I feel like I like the Chiefs at home here, taking momentum from the Super Bowl. They're a much better team, in my opinion, than last season. Not much better, but I feel like they're a very upgraded team than last season. with some continuity with the receivers and young players. So I like the Chiefs here. I think they're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be close, and I think it's going to be kind of a defensive game with a few touchdowns scored. So if I had to put like a point like prediction on it, I'd say like kind of lower scoring, like similar to the AFC Championship game, like 17-14. I think it's like within a field goal. So, and I don't know
Okay.
how much the like what the spread
So
is. So
essentially, we're getting a carbon copy of last year, is what you're saying.
kinda. I mean, I
Because that's what it was. I mean,
yeah,
both
pretty much.
defenses played their tails off, but only one forced more takeaways, and one offense was in better sync. So I can
Yeah.
see that happening. Yeah, I mean, with the exception of last year and a game against Baltimore a few years ago, yeah, Mahomes has been pretty much immaculate in September. Up until last year, I mean, I think he had like an average of 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions with well over 250 yards a game. And I mean, last year wasn't entirely his fault, even though the statistics would probably tell you otherwise. But I think this year will definitely tell a better story. I think, Mahomes, I think he's 4-1 against Lamar Jackson in his career, and the one loss was on the road. So he's been undefeated against Lamar Jackson at home and 1-0 in the playoffs. I think that, listen, until Lamar Jackson finally just gets out of this shell and finally emerges as, the superstar well, not the superstar quarterback, but like the best player on the freaking planet. I mean, Mahomes is going to have his number every single time. And I agree with you that I think it's going to come down to which defense is going to get the most stop. But really, it's about which quarterback is going to screw up the least, because you got two well-coached defenses that know how to plan for these certain types of matchups. Both quarterbacks are incredibly dangerous and elusive, and they both have a good amount of skill position players that will step up at the right moment. But I think with the Chiefs, they have more continuity. I think they have more efficiency, and I think that'll pay off in the end. So I think I'm going to have the Chiefs win. I'm going to have it a little bit of a higher score, but I still think that the Chiefs will pull away, I'd say 30-20.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just because, again, I mean, the Ravens defense, they're going through a new coordinator. They're going for, with different pieces. Obviously, you got to see what their offense does with Derrick Henry in the mix. And the Chiefs, I mean, yeah, they lost the Jarius Sneed, which is why I think the Ravens are going to score a little bit more early on. But at the same time, I think, they still have an aggressive pass rush. Steve Spagnuolo, as you well know, is one of the best defensive minds in the game. And they can force Lamar to make some mistakes that Mahomes will easily capitalize on, no matter who's he's throwing the ball to. So that's why I go with as high of a score as it does.
I could see it.
Oh, don't know what happened there. A little buggy, but
I think we got a little buggy there.
yeah. StreamYard does not want us to talk about the NFL, even though it's like 3 days away. What the hell? Anyways, let's go to Friday night's matchup. That's right, a week 1 Friday night game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers in Brazil. So obviously, it's going to be a pretty fun game. I think it's an awesome matchup, first of all, because you got two of the top NFC teams and two talented quarterbacks, and they're both trying to like win their division this season. So it'll be a good playoff preview, if you ask me, because who knows, maybe they could match up later on. But TJ, you're the big NFC East fan. What do you think's going to happen here?
I mean, you couldn't really have asked for a better matchup. I mean, we were talking earlier, like, the players don't seem to be a fan of playing in Brazil, but this is going to be a fun matchup. Kind of sucks for the Eagles that this is to be one of their home games, but it's just kind of how it goes sometimes. I feel like I'm back and forth on this game just because, two great quarterbacks. Defenses are a little bit of a question mark for both, but I think I'm going to take the Eagles here just because I think we don't really know what to expect from the Packers defense, and we have explained that before in our predictions for the season. But I just think with the Eagles' experience and how much star power they have on their offense, I think they'll take this one. So I think for a score prediction, I'll give the Packers, I think they will be able to score points too because the Eagles' defense is not very good either. But I think somewhere along the lines of like 28-21 is a good score prediction for that. But I could totally see the Packers winning this just because of the Eagles' defense and how good Jordan Love is. But I just think the Eagles' offense and their star power might be a little too much, especially on out the gates week 1. So
Yeah. I can see the same thing too. I mean, I can see the Packers find a way to pull off this upset, but I also know that this is going to be a high-scoring affair. Both offenses are incredibly talented, while the defenses are definitely adjusting to their new schemes. Obviously, both of them weren't that great last year, which is why they had a change at the coordinator position. But I think both quarterbacks are going to play really well. I think it's going to be back and forth. I can really see this going to overtime just because of how highly entertaining it's supposed to be. But I think the Eagles will find a way to pull it out. I think they have a little more firepower on their offense. And while I do have more faith in Jordan Love making less mistakes than Jalen Hurts, I just know that also that, if you give Jalen Hurts the ball with plenty of time left to try to win the game or to extend it into overtime, that, you got to be ready and you got to get your popcorn set. So, I think the Eagles will win, but I think it's going to be very close. Like I said, I'm going to go 34-31, just because, I mean, again, you got to see how both defenses are going to be able to attack. And really, it just comes down to which quarterback is going to have the ball in his hands last. So it could really go either way, but based on the amount of talent that the Eagles have, by the way, Saquon's first game with the Eagles and Josh Jacobs is first with the Packers. Same thing with Xavier McKinney. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to a walk-off field goal from Jake the Make Elliott. So.
all right.
All right, indeed. All right, now we get into Sunday's festivities, starting with a little bit of I wouldn't say a snooze fest, but, one of those games where it's an interconference game that might be a little one-sided. The Bills versus the Cardinals in Buffalo.
I mean, I don't really know what to think of this game because I could see a scenario where it's close because Cardinals really, got better this offseason, at least offensively, while the Bills kind of, I don't think they really got worse, I'd say, but, there's definitely some question marks there.
Mm-hmm.
The last time these two teams played was the infamous Hail Murray game where DeAndre Hopkins, that kind of shows you how long ago it was, but nevertheless, just mossed 3 defenders in a Hail Mary last second of the game. So, yeah, that was pretty nuts game. We'll see if it turns out to be that way. I just think, I feel like the Bills are more experienced. Cardinals are still gelling. There's more continuity there, even with the turnover the Bills have had. And I think with this Cardinals defense that I think it still needs to develop. I think Josh could have a pretty good game here. So I'm going to take the Bills here. They're also at home, so that definitely plays a big factor into it, especially with the Bills Mafia. So I'll say the Bills win 30-17.
30-17. That's a pretty fair score. By the way, throughout that whole cut, I don't think you ever stopped. So if Carla B, you're watching, give him extra style points. I'm really proud of that. Let's go. So, all right, I got to get my pick now. So I think the Bills are going to win pretty easily. And I don't think the Cardinals offense is going to struggle for the most part because I think it's really the first time where Kyler Murray and this whole new offense, they're going to be able to get their first reps in and realize just how much chemistry they're going to gain over the course of the season. Marvin Harrison's debut is Kyler's return. You got Trey McBride and obviously James Conner and a new offensive line. But the reason why I think the Bills are going to win is just because their offense is a little bit better. I think their defense is going to be more suffocating. And I don't really trust Arizona's defense at the moment because it doesn't really have that much talent around it. So I think that the Cardinals could make it close early on, but I think the Bills are just going to run away with it throughout the rest. I agree with you. I think the Bills are going to score. I'll go with 31. I'll go a point higher, but I think it's going to be about a 31-13 type of contest. So, again, close early on, but then once the adjustments are made, then that's when the Bills just start running away with it, especially at home.
Yeah.
So I would probably say that's my lock of the week, but we'll keep going, and maybe I'll change my mind. All right, next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals versus the New England Patriots. So the Cincinnati Bengals have lost the last two home openers, but that could definitely change, especially against a team that's starting over for the first time in 25 years. So I'll go first as the Patriots fan. I actually can see this be a lot. I can see this getting a lot closer than people expect, just because I mean Cincinnati's defense. I like the players that they have, but I also know that they're going to deal with a lot of bumps. They weren't as dominant as they were over the last few seasons, so they're going to go through some growing pains. And yet, while the Patriots offense might not be the most talented, I feel like they could have like a few splash plays that could keep things very interesting. But I think the Bengals will still win overall. I mean, they have the better quarterback, they have a better team, they got a better head coach at the moment, and I just think that they're just going to make more plays and they're going to take advantage of a lot of mistakes from the Patriots side, just because they don't really have the best roster right now. But Jamar Chase is a question mark because he's still holding in. He still hasn't gotten a contract. Zach Taylor looked like an idiot by saying he expected him to be there week one, yet Jamar Chase keeps showing up in street clothes every single practice. So I'm going to go with the Bengals, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I'm going to go 20-16. I mean, people didn't think that the Patriots been making a contest against the Eagles, but even though they lost, it was like, oh, wow, they made Mac Jones look like Tom Brady. So that's what I'll go with. What about you, buddy?
I think, yeah, this is an interesting one just because like because you don't really know what you're getting out of Joe Burrow right off the injury week one, especially considering how like he really hasn't played well in early season matchups. So definitely something to consider. Jamar Chase not playing, definitely something to consider. But I'd probably still go with the Bengals here. They're just the more, they've again, there's less question marks with the Bengals, even with Joe Burrow coming back from injury. So yeah, I think that with the Patriots defense, they'll definitely be able to hold them to less points than people might expect. And the Bengals defense has some players, but definitely not the strongest unit. So I think that could even it out a little bit, but just too many questions on the Patriots offense. So I'll say the Bengals win 24-17.
That's a pretty fair score. I can see that. And it's really going to be the defense's first test as a full group without Matt Judon or Christian Barmore. So
Right.
definitely going to be interested to see that. But speaking of our favorite teams, let's talk about the New York Giants hosting the Minnesota Vikings, wearing the red classic uniforms. By the way, I saw the midfield logo. It looks absolutely sick.
Yeah.
But let's get your thoughts on this one. What do you have?
I mean, it seems like, the odds are pretty even here. And I kind of get that because they're two pretty similar teams, I'd say. Uncertainty at quarterback, switch over at running back, LSU receivers. So that's kind of funny. And then they've
Yeah,
got other playmakers as well. And, kind of rebuilding offensive lines that can maybe be solid. And I would say the Giants defense is definitely better than the Vikings defense, just with their defensive line and linebacking core, their front seven. Um, Giants are at home here. I think this is going to be an extremely close game, and I think it's going to come down to the wire. But I think I'd probably take the Giants here just because I'd take Daniel Jones over Sam Darnold by
that's
a
the
little.
bad part.
And I think the difference is going to be that I would much rather have the Giants defense over the Vikings defense. So I think this is going to be close. I think this is going to be pretty low scoring. I'll go. I'll go. Dang, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'll say 21-20. I think it'll be a little high scoring than I originally thought. Because these,
21
these
20.
these teams will be able to score points, I feel like, against, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. No, I could see that. I mean, it's a good test to see how that pass rush is going to do against the Vikings O-line that doesn't give up too many sacks, but it's going to give up a lot of pressures and a lot of hits. And against a quarterback like Sam Darnold, yeah, it could pay off well. But here's the same thing. The same thing can be said with the Vikings defense against Daniel Jones. And granted, they might not have the most explosive talent, but you still got guys like Jonathan Grenard and obviously Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel. They just signed Stephon Gilmore, so you're reuniting him with Brian Flores. You still have Harrison Smith. So you got a lot of guys that can blitz. He loves doing that. He loves calling cover zero blitzes. He loves getting after the quarterback. And Shane Bowen is really a guy that focuses on pressure, focuses on attacking the pocket, and just really relies on that front four to get home, as Dexter Lawrence has literally told us on this very show. But having said that, I'm going to pick the Vikings here. And the reason why I did that is because, listen, I know it might be Sam Darnold, but something tells me it's going to be like a Geno Smith type of game where you kind of get surprised by how well he's performing, because I don't think this Vikings offense is bad enough to win just like to be this trash. I mean, you got Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, and even though you might not have TJ Hawkinson since he's on the PUP list, you still have a lot of explosive playmakers. You got a hell of an offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell, and the defense has so many guys that could really shut down this Giants offense, or at least slow them down, because you have a lot of new guys coming in. You got Devin Singletary, Malik Neighbors, and Theo Johnson, and you don't really know how they're going to do to start off the season. At least with the Vikings, we know what these guys are capable of. So I think that experience will pay off. I think it'll be close. I'm not going to say it's a blowout, but I think the Vikings will get the edge here. I'm going to go 24-20. I'm going to add an extra 3 points. So I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk at all, but again, I just think the Vikings have the better offense, and I think their defense will be able to capitalize on Daniel Jones' mistakes more often. So it'll be an awesome game, though.
Indeed.
Can't wait to watch Scott Hansen break down that freaking fiasco. Like that's what I normally do. Obviously, I watch the Patriots, but I really pay attention. I've been starting to pay attention to Red Zone a lot more, because as someone that loves to write these articles and to talk about these games on the shows, I always look at Red Zone and then like, all right, so this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then when I watch the cut-ups and when I look at the box scores, it's just like, okay, this is what really happened. So that's why I've started to be a little more cerebral when it comes to that. But I digress. Let's get to this next game. Caleb Williams' debut will be against the Tennessee Titans, who obviously just revamped their whole roster. They had just acquired Ernest Jones in a trade with the Los Angeles Rams. I don't know why the hell LA would trade their best defensive player, knowing that Aaron Donald just retired, but I think we can save that for when the Rams play the Lions on Sunday. But this should be a very interesting game. I mean, you got Caleb Williams and Will Levis making their first starts of the season. Caleb, his first of his career. And these two should be some of the sneakiest teams in the league, because the Bears are obviously a team that's trying to get their respect back, and the Titans are trying to shock a few people as well with all the moves they made. But TJ, who do you have winning this game?
I think I'm going to take the Bears here. It could go either way. I think with Levis, like, I'm really high on the Titans, as I've said before, but the Bears are, right out the gate. I think they're going to be able to score points, and the Titans defense is still forming. So I think that might give them the edge here. So, Bears are also at home too. This fan base is really just hungry for, better quarterback play and better offense. And I think they could get in this game. So, I'll say the Bears win here 27-20. 21. Say 27-21.
All right, 27-21. Yeah, I hope it's going to be a close game. I mean, for all of our sakes, because, I mean, like you said, both teams are just trying to rise back up to the top with all the moves they made. I have the Bears winning this too, but I think it's going to be a little more lopsided than we think. I mean, with Caleb Williams coming in and with all the new moves they made on their offense, with the defense gelling at the perfect time last year, I think this is going to be really one of the first glimpses where we see this team really play at their best. I mean, last year they were one of the league leaders in takeaways. The Titans, they don't really have the best offensive line. And, I mean, with the exception of DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, who are both in their 30s, I just don't really know who's going to be like their big playmaker just yet. I mean, I have a lot of hope for Tennessee, but it's just they really need so many things to go right for them this year. And the Bears, they're under way more pressure. They're going to be under a bigger microscope, obviously, with Hard Knocks. By the way, it's been an awesome season, and I think I have a lot more faith in them now than I did when we did our NFC North preview. But I think it's going to be a pretty one-sided game. I think this offense can definitely ruffle in a few feathers for this, Titans defense that is just trying to figure out how to gel with one another. Since they pretty much overhauled their whole secondary, they just acquired Ernest Jones. You have new pieces to help out Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. So they're going to experience a lot of bumps. And on the other side, you got a Bears defense that is just ready to play like hell. And really, I mean, if you watch them on Hard Knocks, they are looking for vengeance, especially with Jalen Johnson, who is still annoyed as hell that he got left off the top 100 players list, which to me, it's ridiculous considering that he's literally the second best corner in the NFL, or one of the top three. Obviously, there's Jalen Ramsey, but we'll save that for another day. So I have the Bears winning, but I think it's going to be a blowout, 35-14.
Whoa.
Yeah. Again, I think, listen, you're at home, and the Titans, the Bears have a lot more talent on both sides of the ball, and really, I think they're ready to just live up to the Hard Knocks hype, if you ask me. They've been undefeated in the preseason, and they want to get off to the right start for this regular season. So that's what I'd say. All right, let's move on to the New Orleans Saints versus the Carolina Panthers. Probably the most boring game of the week, just by the two teams alone. TJ, I'll let you go first.
Man, this could have potential to be a snooze fest, but I'm going to go with the upset here. I like the Panthers in this.
Okay.
I think the Panthers are going to be a way better team than what they put out last year, and I think they start it right here against the Saints team that, yeah, they have a good defense, and I think, they're kind of just, they're not a terrible team, but I think the Panthers are ready to take this step, and I think Bryce Young is too, and we talked about that as well. So I'll go with the Panthers. It's going to be close. I mean, they're not going to blow them out, I don't think, but I'll go Panthers 20-17. Panthers 2017.
I'm going to use the same score, but I'm going to pick the Saints. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I agree with you about the Panthers just because you got Dave Canales coming in. So you expect his offense to be a lot better than what it was last year, which might not be saying a whole lot, but anything would be better than whatever the hell we watched last year. Canales, he's been known for turning around quarterbacks' careers. We saw that with Gino. We saw that with Baker. And hopefully we could see the same thing with Bryce Young. But the reason why I'm picking the Saints is because I think their defense is going to be way more aggressive. They always come out with hell game plans against some of the more inferior offenses and really the more inferior teams of the league. And I think under new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, I think we're going to see a lot more explosion with this offense. You're going to see Carr clicking with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. You're going to be able to see this offensive line really try to gel with one another since Talius Fuaga, I think that was their first-round draft pick. I could be confusing it with someone else. But the point is, you're going to be able to see a more dynamic offense that's not so stale, that's not so vanilla. And with the defense, you just know that even though your pass rush might not be the greatest, all you got to do is play lockdown in the secondary, and the rest will take care of itself. So I think it'll be a lot closer just because we're going to see a whole new Panthers offense. But we're also going to be saying the same thing with the Saints. And they have more continuity. They have more experience playing with one another. So I think in the end, the Saints will find a way to barely pull through at the end, especially since they're at home in the Superdome. So
true. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, both teams are better.
In Carolina, I'd probably agree with you, but
yeah, fair enough.
Anything can happen. You never know. So
good point.
All right. Now we get to the Arthur Smith revenge game. The Pittsburgh Steelers traveling out to Georgia to play the Atlanta Falcons. It's going to be Russell Wilson's first start as a Pittsburgh Steeler. It'll be Kirk Cousins' first start as an Atlanta Falcon. So that'll be pretty interesting. And also, Matt Judon and Justin Simmons make their debut in the black and red. So I'll let you go first, buddy.
I mean, these ones are always weird because like two teams that have completely different quarterbacks. Um, but I'm gonna go with the Falcons here.
All right.
One, they're at home. Two, the Steelers are gonna find a way to go 9-8, but I feel like when they play these good teams, like I don't really think they have too much of a shot. So yeah, I'll go with the Falcons here. I think they're really gonna put up points here, and I think it's just gonna be too overwhelming for the Steelers to fight back. So I'll go
Right.
Falcons. Falcons 34, Steelers 17. I had a hard time figuring that out.
Okay. I'm gonna go with a little bit of an upset here. I'm gonna go with the Steelers. Really more from a
Hmm,
historical standpoint. I mean, Mike Tomlin has not lost to the Falcons as an NFL head
really?
coach. I think he's only had one loss against an NFC South team, and that was the Saints in 2018. I could be wrong.
That's wild.
I have to do my research, but the point is, normally when they go up against the NFC South, he pretty much always comes up with a great game plan. It might not be a blowout every time, but it's perfectly balanced on both sides of the ball. And listen, I don't expect Russell Wilson to come out slinging. They're going to run the ball a lot. That's what Arthur Smith prides himself on. The Falcons don't really have the best run defense right now. I mean, last year they were pretty above average, but not that great. And I know that with Kirk Cousins coming back to action from a torn Achilles, this Steelers defense is going to be swarming. You know, you got TJ Watt coming back. You know, he led the league in sacks last year. Patrick Queen makes his debut. The secondary is completely revamped. So I think we're going to see a lot. I think we're going to see a very aggressive and a very hungry Steelers defense. And even though the Falcons are at home and they should be the better team, I just think it's going to be one of those games where they go through a rough patch and they have to take a week or two to really figure it out. So that way they play their best ball later on in the year. It's week one. Anything can happen. But I think the Steelers will be able to pretty much control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So give me the Steelers 23-14.
All right, so we're a little bit of different opinion on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, anything can happen. I mean, I'm going to say that a lot, but it's just
Week 1, right? Yeah.
It is week one. I mean, nobody thought that the Steelers with Mitchell Trubisky would beat the Bengals a couple of years ago. No one thought that the Giants would beat the Titans when Tennessee was the #1 seed the year before. So,
Yeah, good points. I mean,
all right, this one is going to be a pretty fun 1 o'clock game to watch. The Miami Dolphins versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, a Florida matchup that should be really competitive, considering that both of them are wild card contenders at best. TJ, my brother, you're up.
yeah, I mean, I actually don't think this game's going to be close.
Okay.
I think the Dolphins every September the Dolphins are on a historic pace offensively, and I don't really know why they did this to the Jaguars, especially with the secondary that they're definitely in a rebuilding mode with their secondary. So this could be kind of a problematic day for them, and I think the Dolphins are just going to be able to put up points. So yeah, I'm going to take the Dolphins here. I don't know what the spread is, but this is like my lock. I would definitely take the Dolphins. And I think they're going to win. I'll say 30-10.
30-10. Wow.
Man, I think I
Right.
think the Dolphins. You look at their September track record with McDaniel, like they can
I'm with you. I mean,
put up points.
last year they barely beat the Chargers by 2. It took a 200+ yard performance from Tyreek Hill to beat them. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be that much of a blowout if you ask me. But I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, it could end up like that too. We just got to see that game was interesting too because like the Chargers were able to kind of fight back. So maybe the Jaguars are. I don't really see it. They don't really have the receiving core.
They ran for 200 yards against Miami. So that's what really kept the Chargers in it. But I'm going to pick the Dolphins too, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than we think. Obviously, the Jaguars defense has a lot of holes and a lot of flaws, but I don't really know how great the Dolphins defense is going to be. Yeah, they got a lot of pressure since they had Vic Fangio, but against some of the stronger teams, they always showed that they look like the Jets. I mean, against the teams that they should beat handily, they look like the best team in football, and against, respectable teams, they look like the Jets. The Jaguars are kind of in that middle space where they're not bad enough to be a playoff contender, but not great enough to be a Super Bowl contender. So I think it'll be a pretty back and forth matchup. I think both quarterbacks will play really well, but I think the Dolphins, they have more speed on their offense, and really more importantly, I think they have better playmakers on the defensive side that will show up later on. So I agree with you that the Dolphins will win, but I think Jason Sanders will save the day with a walk-off field goal. So give me the Dolphins 26-23.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Absolutely. All right, the final game in the 1 o'clock slate, we got the Houston Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts, a rematch of the season finale from last year, where the Texans, held a 23-17 lead, and then the Colts were driving down the field to try to win the game, went on a 4th and 1. The ball fell out of Tyler Goodson's hands. The game was over, and Houston ended up winning the AFC South as a result. Now Anthony Richardson will be under center. It'll be in the same stadium as it was last year, Lucas Oil Stadium. And the Houston Texans are just flat out more terrifying than they were the year before. So, TJ, who do you got?
I'll take the Texans here. This is, again, I like the Colts too, but just the Texans I feel like they're going to be out slinging. They got a good run game with Joe Mixon, as we've explained, and I think Anthony Richardson going to have some rust, so that might, with the defense that proved to be opportunistic last year, could be the difference in the game. So I think, I think the Texans are going to have a good day on defense, and it's just going to be a, fundamentally good football game for the Texans, just because of the rust and the kind of inexperience the Colts have. So, yeah, I'll take the Texans here. I'll say 24-13.
24-13. I have the Texans winning this game too, but I think it'll be a little bit of a bigger blowout because Anthony Richardson, you got to be able to see what he's going to do under center, especially coming off of that shoulder injury. Didn't really have the best preseason, but at the same time, there's that whole narrative where it's like, all right, it's preseason. It doesn't count. It doesn't really matter as much. Well, right. When you get these reps and when you have these plays and these series that you're involved in, it really just shows how much your technique has improved, how much your poise, how big your poise is, and just shows how better you're getting over the course of the offseason. But I think the Texans, they got more firepower in their offense. I think their defense is going to play lights out. And I think the Colts could try to keep it close early on, but I think the Texans just have the better team. So I think Houston will win this game about 30-13. So 6 more points than you have for Houston. Yeah. Like I said, the Colts are going to struggle. The Texans offense just has so many playmakers, and their defense is just completely loaded. So that's why.
I guess that's not too different from my prediction. It's only 6 points different, so I could see that.
Yep. All right, next we get to the 4 o'clock games. Let's start with the Chargers versus the Raiders in SoFi Stadium. Jim Harbaugh's debut as the head coach. Justin Herbert's first game back from injury. And the Raiders, it's their first game with Antonio Pierce as the permanent head coach. So that should be really fun. TJ, your call.
Justin Herbert does usually do pretty well versus the Raiders here, but
especially at home.
I think the Raiders get him here. I think the Raiders take one here. Again, I'm factoring in that this is week 1. Some crazy stuff happens in week 1. So I'm not saying the Raiders are necessarily better than the Chargers. I'm just saying I feel like with the Raiders having Crosby and Wilkins now that we described, the rest of their defense is not too great, but I think they can get an upset here, which I think I'd assume the Chargers are favorites here. So
yeah, they're home, so I would.
Yeah. And I think this is going to take a few weeks. I said this in the prediction. I think this is with the Chargers going to take a few weeks to click, especially with Herbert coming off an injury. A lot of moving pieces. So I'll give it a few weeks for the Chargers. I think the Raiders, with their continuity, their coaching staff, they still have Devontae Adams, Zamir White. Yeah, for now, right? Good point. But he is here for now, so I am factoring that in. And I think it's going to be close. So I think the Raiders win here. I'll say 20-19.
20-19. That's a pretty close score there. I can see where you're coming from. it's week one. It's a division rivalry game. These things happen. I mean, as I said earlier, 2 years ago, the Steelers beat the Bengals 23-20 with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback. So those things can definitely happen, and when you least expect it. But I have Chargers winning. I mean, Justin Herbert normally plays his best ball against the Raiders at home. And more importantly, I mean, Khalil Mack turns into a completely different player when he goes up against his former team, especially at home. I mean, last year, he had 6 sacks against this same team, against Aiden O'Connell. And even though Gardner Minshew is going to be the starting quarterback, this is the type of team where Khalil Mack just plays at his absolute best. It's where this offense is going to be, not as explosive as it's been over the last few seasons, especially with new moving parts. But I think that, the Chargers, I think they'll be more fundamentally sound offensively. And, I mean, I just don't really trust this Raiders offense right now. I know they got Devontae, but it's just who else is going to step up besides my guy, Jacoby Myers. So I have the Chargers winning this. I'll say it's close just because I know the Raiders are not going to quit. They're not going to let it become a blowout, but I still think that the Chargers are just a better team. So give me LA 28-20. So
I can see it.
Especially since the Chargers defense has never been that great recently. So
True.
Okie dokie. Next, we got the Seattle Seahawks versus the Denver Broncos. Fun fact, the Seahawks announced that they're going to wear their old 90s throwback uniforms against this team. It'll be Bo Nix's first career start as a Broncos quarterback, and it's going to be a debut game for Mike McDonald as the head coach of Seattle. So fire away, buddy.
Again, back and forth on this one. I don't know, because I feel like the Broncos are sneaky here, but, I'm going to take the Seahawks. Better defense, better offense. Even though I really love Bo Nix, I got to go the Seahawks here. I feel like they're just the better overall roster. Also
right. It's at Seattle.
At home, so I feel like that definitely plays a factor in it.
What's your score?
I'll probably go. I'd say it's kind of a defensive game, so I'll go 17-14.
I can see that. That's actually pretty realistic. I got the Seahawks winning this game too, not only because they're home, just because, it's going to be a rookie quarterback's first start. And Mike McDonald is the type of defensive coach that will probably have his best performance against these types of rookies. And even though the Seahawks have a lot of different pieces than the Baltimore Ravens did in the past, I just think that, the Seahawks offense, it's got more talent. Sans the offensive line. I think their defense will show up in spurts. I don't expect it to play a completely lights out game. I expect Bo Nix to make a lot of plays, but I think when you give Geno the ball in his hands in the final minutes, I think he's going to shine and deliver, especially against the Broncos defense that was just really inconsistent last year. Yeah. I think it'll come down to a field goal. So Jason Myers, you better be watching. This is all on you, buddy. But I think it'll be a little bit of a higher scoring game. So give me the Seahawks 23-20, just because you got to really see what both of these teams can do with new players and new coaches. So
fair enough.
All right. Next, we got the Dallas Cowboys versus the Cleveland Browns. Now, I will be watching this not only because it's going to be a fun matchup between two of the best defenses and two playoff teams from last year, but it is also Tom Brady's first game as a broadcaster, and it's going to be freaking fun as hell to be able to hear him talk about the game and break down some of these plays. I never thought this day would come, as a lifelong Patriots fan, but I'm sure as hell glad that this day is coming. And I'm sure, I don't know how you felt when you heard that there was going to be a Manning cast on Monday Night Football, but my feelings for this are like going to be 10 times greater than that. So I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to see a stat that this is one of the most watched NFL games of all time, just because of the significance of it. Not the best matchup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But very weird. I don't really understand the significance of Cowboys versus Browns, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I'm excited to see Brady calling the game, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys here. I think they're better in a lot of, I think, the most important facets of the game. I mean, obviously edge rusher, it's a pretty big tie just because Parsons and Garrett, that's cool. But I mean, the discrepancy in quarterback and overall, just, I feel like coaching and, secondary play, I feel like could prove to be, um, you know, I feel like the Cowboys are just a more coherent team. So I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I think they win 27-17.
All right. So a little bit of a bigger difference than expected.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a really close game. You got two outstanding defenses, but I also think, Dallas is pretty banged up. They lost Stephon Gilmore to free agency. Deron Bland is obviously going to be out for the next 6 to 8 weeks because of a knee injury. I think it was a knee, or it could be a foot. Point is, he's going to be out long term. And I mean, really, it's just going to come down to which quarterback is going to deliver at the most opportune times. Obviously, Dak Prescott has more cachet, but at the same time, he is prone to having these types of stinkers where when you go up against these tough defenses, he'll tend to, kind of unravel and cost his team at the worst moments. And Deshaun Watson, it's just really inconsistent. He's average at his best and then really rusty at his worst. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't expect I don't expect either of these teams to turn the ball over that much. And I think both defenses will come up with at least 2 sacks, but I have a lot more faith in the Cowboys offense to get it done in the clutch moments, especially since CeeDee Lamb finally got his contract. So happy that he is now the second highest paid non-quarterback in the league. But I think it's going to come down to a Brandon Aubrey walk-off. Cowboys win 20-19.
Yeah. It's just interesting to see if the Browns defense maintains that level of play from last season, but could prove to be a fun game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, it might not be the most exciting, but I think we're going to be in for one hell of a game just because, like I said, 2 great defenses. You got, 2 teams that were in the playoffs last year. I mean, what better could you ask? So, well, actually, we can get into that in a few minutes. Next up, I think this is the last Sunday afternoon game. The Bucks versus the Washington Commanders at Tampa Bay. Jaden Daniels makes his first start. Who do you got here?
I like another upset here. I'm
All
going with the
right.
Commanders. I feel like the Buccaneers. It's tough because Jane Daniels is such a unique skill set. I wouldn't even say unique anymore because there's so many players that can run like this. But just because I feel like the Bucks really don't know what to expect here, just because of the differences. I know, and honestly, not even just Jane Daniels. They have a whole new staff, bunch of different players on the defensive side of the ball, and I think with the Bucks being kind of the same, you can there's more continuity there, yes, but also I think the Commanders have film on them. So I like the Commanders here with Dan Quinn. I think the defense will be better, and I think the offense will prove to have some good plays. So I'll go not in a blowout, obviously, but I'll probably go 24-21. I think they win on a game-winning field goal.
I could see that. I could see this being an upset. I'm not going to go with it because I mean the Bucks. Listen, I could see Jaden Daniels having a more promising game than we think, but I don't know how this defense is going to do how they're going to perform. I mean, obviously it's a whole new unit with a brand new coaching staff, but I think the Bucks really just comes down to experience for me and continuity. When I was writing my season preview for both of these teams, I was really struggling with who the winner of this game would be, just because I know that the upside and the potential is there for Washington, and you could really see a setback taking place with Tampa, even though they should be, one of the teams that will compete for the NFC South. But then again, it's a weak division. But the point is, I think that the Bucks, I think they'll hang on. I think that at home, they'll find a way to barely win at the end. If this was on the road, I'd probably agree with you. I'll go with the upset here, but I think that the Bucks, it just really comes down to continuity, and I think their defense is going to be a lot better in this game. Not saying that Jaden Daniels is going to stink, but I just believe that with how well they've been under Todd Bowles over the last 5 or so years, it's just I think it's going to pay off when they need it the most. So I think it'll be really close. It'll be low scoring, and I think a field goal will decide it. Give me the Bucks though, 20-17.
Yeah, 2 very different teams. So
exactly, it'll be a really fun. I'm actually going to be at this game, so this will be really fun to watch. So
that'll be fun.
I think Tampa got themselves a very fun as hell opening game. All right, Sunday Night Football. the Lions versus the Rams, the rematch of last year's wild card. Obviously, we know that Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, they're going up against their former teams. Who do you have?
I mean, these are two of the best teams in the NFC. So kind of, I mean, we saw it went last time, and I kind of expected it to be similar. But I'll go the other way around. I'm going to take the Rams here.
Okay, so it's literally the opposite of what we did when we picked the playoff game. I picked the Rams, you picked the Lions. Now it's gonna be like the opposite. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll pick the Rams, but it's going to be like I hate this. This is a tough one to pick. Like I can't even feel confident about this because I think it could go either way. But I'll go Rams 28-24.
Wow. All right. I mean, not impossible, just because it's the Lions defense. But I think Detroit will win this game. I mean, they're at home. Both offenses are going to be incredible, but I think the Lions play a lot better at home than they do on the road. And more importantly, the biggest reason why is because I can't really trust the shuffling with the Rams defense. I mean, they traded Ernest Jones to the Titans for literally pennies on the dollar. I don't know why they traded their best player from last year, well, with the exception of Aaron Donald. I understand that they drafted Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, and you still have Kobe Turner and Byron Young and Michael Hoyt. But the secondary is already very vulnerable. You just traded your best linebacker, and you lost your defensive coordinator to the Atlanta Falcons. Like, this is another unit where it's just overhauled at this point and where they had to go through so many changes. So despite the electric offense and the brilliance of Sean McVay, I just think that at home, when you have, the Detroit faithful, and knowing that you didn't lose any notable pieces, you still have, Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra and Gibbs and Montgomery, and Jared Goff just got paid, for 4 more years. I think that this offense will pull through at the end. It's going to be a back and forth game once again. And I got the Lions winning this 31-28. So I got a lot of games decided by a field goal here.
Yeah.
Or 3 points, really.
That's week 1 for you.
Absolutely. Speaking of week 1, finally, we get to the Monday Night Football matchup. The Jets versus the 49ers in San Francisco. Robert Saleh gets revenge against his former team. Aaron Rodgers is hoping that when he goes up against Leonard Floyd, he does not tear his Achilles again because, last year, 4 snaps in, Leonard Floyd is on the Bills. We all know what happened there. This time, he's on the 49ers, and it's Monday Night Football again. Like, the schedule makers were just like, you know what, let's get people talking about this one. And this is going to be a great matchup either way because, you got the defending NFC champion versus the Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers in the regular season has normally been pretty strong against this team, despite the postseason record. But TJ, I'll give you the final pick here.
Tough for the Jets to have to go against the Niners, and they have a tough start to the schedule tough start to the season too.
Yeah.
I think now that Ayuk's back, there's some more clarity with the Niners. Still with Trent Williams though, that's kind of still a question mark. But
Ayuk finally got paid, thank God.
Yeah. I'm still gonna go with the Niners here. They're just a better team and less question marks. Could I see a Jets upset here? I don't know. You never know. Trent Williams being out definitely could make that possible. But I'm gonna go with the Niners. I'll say 34-21.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's maybe
30?
midway through the season. I think this would be a different, but like to start this week 1 for a Jets team that still needs to gel together. Like I know it's Aaron Rodgers, but like still like it's tough to go against this team. The 49ers are one of the best teams in the league, so
yeah, that's true. Here's the thing. I think it'll be pretty close. Obviously the Jets are one of those teams where it's just like you hope they actually live up to expectations, but it's the Jets and they can't really have any nice things, unfortunately, since it's just always one of those teams that just always gets in their own way. But yeah, I agree with you. The 49ers should be the better team, but I think that the Jets can exploit a lot of weaknesses. I think both teams can run the ball extremely well. And, with Brees Hall fully healthy, they're going to use him a lot. The secondary that the 49ers have, it can be vulnerable against guys like Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. I'm excited to see what Malachi Corley can do, the rookie. And when Aaron Rodgers is fully healthy, if he could be at least 85% of what he was, or even 70, let's set it there, to be fair, I think that the Jets are a very hard team to stop. And their defense has been outstanding over the last couple of seasons. So I don't really see any setbacks there. But I think the 49ers will win. They're at home. They got a better offense, or they have a more experienced offense. They have more guys that the Jets can, give up a lot of chunk plays. They weren't the best run defense, so I could expect a big game from Christian McCaffrey. And the Jets' offensive line might have been improved, but you still have to deal with Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave and those guys. And Leonard Floyd, who I literally just brought up at the opening of this segment. So I can see this going to overtime, but I think the 49ers are just the better team here. I think they'll pull it out at home. So my final score, 27-24.
That would be I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a close game there.
The week 1 picks are locked. I can slam the book shut, but we're not done yet, because now we're going to make our predictions for who we think is going to win each and every NFL award that they give out at the NFL Honors. So that's MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, so forth and so forth. I'm just pulling up the list right now just so I'm not missing any. Let me pull it up right here. All right, let's just get right into it.
I think we had another technical difficulty there.
Yeah.
But do you want to explain the question again?
Who do you think is going to win MVP?
MVP. Give me Joe Burrow. Okay. I think Joe Burrow is going to win MVP.
Yeah. I would probably say, it's going to be mainly a quarterback award, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Tyreek Hill finally does it. Listen, it hasn't happened in a very long. I don't think a wide receiver has ever won an MVP, but I don't think so. Listen, Tyreek Hill is just the most dangerous player on the freaking earth. He was just voted number 1 by his peers, and I don't know. The record might not say it. Who knows? But I think if the Dolphins, whenever they don't have Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins' offense is just not as potent and as explosive as it should be. And I don't think Tua would have been, the league leader in passing yards if it wasn't for him. So that's my dark horse candidate, but I could see Joe Burrow winning it. I don't know. It's probably going to be a quarterback, but I would love to see a different position try to win it.
Yeah, Tyreek would be fun.
All right, Coach of the Year.
Oh, Coach of the Year. Dang, I kind of want to go on a limb here, right?
Yeah.
Because usually what it's been in the past is like teams that kind of go under the radar that aren't, or teams that do, teams that get better as the season goes on, or teams that weren't necessarily, projected to do well and ended up having a really good outcome. So for me, I think is Brian Callahan with the Titans. Ooh. I think how I think the Titans are going to end up, I think they're going to be a lot better than people think. I'm going to give it to Brian Callahan. So
I could see that. I could definitely see that. This one's tough, man. I mean, it's going to take a miracle for one of these teams that we don't think is going to do well for them to completely surprise us into the playoff mix. And this happens every single year. But I might go with Matt Eberflus here, and it might be recency bias just because of Hard Knocks. But listen, I've been a lot more hopeful about them now than I was when we did the season preview. Matt Eberflus, he's a likable head coach. He's not too rah-rah, but he's also not too quiet. The players love him. He's like the guy that you don't want to disappoint. The players love him. The chemistry is great. I mean, the culture looks flat out terrific. It looks like it's getting better now that, they made these new additions. And I'm excited. And I think it's finally going to be the time where the Bears just finally get out of this freaking historical curse and let the world know that this is their time to shine. So that's what I have. It could be anyone though, and we might not see it coming. So,
Yep.
All right, offensive player of the year.
That'll go Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
I think I'll go Tyreek Hill for offensive player of the year. 100%.
I'll probably go with him too. MVP and offensive.
Yeah, if he wins MVP, he's probably
it's
the
not
offensive
the
player.
first time that it'll happen. So
Yeah.
there you go. Defensive player of the year.
I love this pick, and I don't know what his odds are, but if like I think this would be a great. It depends on what his odds are, but this would be a great bet. Max Crosby. That is such a good one because
that's a great one.
Adding Christian Wilkins is just going to unleash him even more. I know the rest of the defense isn't too spectacular, but I think Max Crosby, he's already one of the game's best, but really could have become the best edge rusher and it's not even a debate. So I could see that. That'd be fun.
I'm going to go with Micah here. I think now that he's done a new defensive coordinator, now that he's going to be like a sole edge rusher, a sole defensive end, this is really, he's been seeing Myles Garrett get his first defensive player of the year. He saw TJ Watt get it. He's pretty much been on the outside looking in throughout his whole career. Yeah. And now it's finally time, Nick Bosa. And now it's just time for him to say, all right, now it's time for me to get my hardware. And knowing how great this Cowboys defense has been since Micah got there, it's got to come to a point where it's like, all right, when the hell am I going to get my damn respect? So I think this is going to be the year where Micah just really explodes onto the scene. Not that he already hasn't, but listen, he's got to get it at some point. So, I mean, Myles Garrett finally got it last year after, how many years has it been? 7 seasons?
7, yeah.
Let's see Micah try to do the same thing here. Offensive rookie of the year.
I'm going with the favorite here. I'm going Caleb. I think he's going to have a pretty tremendous rookie season.
I am too.
So I think that's an easy one for me.
And it could be your guy, Malik Neighbors, if, Daniel Jones actually lives up to his contract. But I'd say it's Caleb. I think he's got higher upside. I mean, the team is going to be – I think the team is more likely to be a surprise playoff team, and I think it'll be because of him. So I'll go with Caleb. Defensive rookie of the year.
Probably the toughest one, but I kind of like Jared Verse here.
Okay.
Out of Florida State. Florida State edge rushers are usually pretty good, as we've seen, with Brian Burns. Right. So I kind of think he can have a similar impact like that. Plus, we've seen the Rams really be able to develop defensive players. Kobe Turner, a lot of guys in their secondary, Ernest Jones, even though he's not on the team anymore, we've seen that. So I think that's a sneaky one. Even not really sneaky because was a first-round pick, but I kind of like that one.
That's a good one. I mean, listen, there were not too many defensive players taken. I mean, that early. Yeah. So I could see Jared Verse there. I'll go with you there. I mean, it could be a late round pick that just comes onto the scene, and then we're like, oh wow, who the heck is this guy? So I think I'm probably gonna lean towards more of that than anything. But I'll go with your pick. I'll probably say Jared Verse because again, without Aaron Donald, without Aaron Jones, without Ernest Jones, somebody's got to step up to the plate for this team, and they are supposed to be back in the playoffs. So I agree with you there. And then comeback player of the year. That's the final one.
I mean, I'm going to go Joe Burrow because if he wins MVP, he's going to win comeback. I'll give another, though, if Joe Burrow doesn't end up playing well this season. The tough one. I'm trying to think about who's coming back from injury. Sam Darnold's a sneaky one. You were talking about it earlier. Sam Darnold's a sneaky one. I won't predict that, but yeah, maybe Aaron Rodgers could probably be one that I could see.
I'll go with Joe Burrow because without him, they don't have the expectations that they do now and that they've had year in and year out. And I expect them to be in the conference championship game. And honestly, I could see them beating the Chiefs to make it back to the Super Bowl, if you ask me. So I could definitely see Joe Burrow getting 2 comeback player of the year awards on his resume. So. All right. I think that just about does it. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for additional content. We're going to have recaps episodes throughout the year. We're going to have more picks coming out week after week. So I'm ready. This has been way too long of a wait. And TJ said it, like, we've been through way too many dog days, and now we're finally ready to just lock in, baby.
Yes.
Have a great rest of your week. Happy Labor Day, everybody. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the day off. And hopefully in a few days, you guys are just as pumped as we are. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace.